Good morning, Chairman Bacala. You have HAB 5, which I have stepped up to work with you on. Welcome back. We are glad that you're here for Senate Education. So, if you will, walk us through the bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill, HB 5, co-authored, like we worked on together by myself and Senator Edmonds. It's one of the governor's package bills directly tied to HB 7, a constitutional amendment being proposed by Chairwoman Emerson. You can't talk about HB 5 without talking about HB 7 just a moment. So let me just kind of synopsize the parts of HB 7, the constitutional amendment that are appropriate. In HB 7, it seeks to eliminate three trust funds or three funds within the Constitution. That's the Quality Education Trust Fund, the Education Quality Support Fund, and the Education Excellence Fund. Those three funds in total are worth about $1.96 billion. So let's just round it up and say $2 billion. Right now, there are interest earnings, et cetera, that are used in that to the tune of roughly $50 million a year that go to specific purposes. But if we use this money differently and we take the $2 billion to pay down UAL debt within the teachers' retirement system, we will have savings of roughly $279 million per year, every year into the future, until UAL is paid down. So what we're doing is we're freeing up by HB 7, eliminating these funds. The money gets dedicated to paying down teachers' UAL, $2 billion worth, and they then realize the savings. It's a note they don't have to pay. So it's actually divided up. The K through 12 will save about $200 million, and higher ed will save about $75 million. So what we're doing with this bill is saying once that savings is realized by the local K through 12 school systems, they can't just use that savings, that money that they keep in their pocket from not having to pay the UAL note. They can't use it for anything. They have to use it for specific things. Primarily, they have to use it to provide teacher pay raises at a minimum of $2,000 for certificated and $1,000 for non. What you find if you look at the actual numbers is there are a few of the smaller school systems that fall a bit short. Now, the two things about that is few small systems a little bit short. So you might have a system that only has 60 or 80 teachers, and maybe they fall $200 or $300 short of being able to afford the full $2,000 raise. The bill has an amendment added that says we're going to fix that in UAL so that every public school system has the ability to give the raise, everyone that participates in teachers' retirement system. That's where in the fiscal note comes into play, and there are all kinds of scenarios engaged. You know, if depending, it's stuff that's outside the control of teachers' retirement system. I mean, did a school system already give a raise last year? Did they reduce or increase their number of teachers, et cetera, et cetera? But I think the best case scenario is the fiscal note, which is really the only time I've ever seen a fiscal note that says somewhere between like 600,000 and 7 million. Probably where we're going to end up is about $200,000 we'll have to add somewhere. You guys know all about MFP to take care of those schools. So that, in a nutshell, that's kind of it. I'll answer any questions you guys may have.
Let me add a bit to that, Chairman Bacala. When we were looking through this, members, for example, the Education Quality Trust Fund was about $1.5 million.
1.45.
447. Education Excellence Fund was $471,000. That's where you come up with the 1919 or roll it up to about $2 billion. To go back in time to about 1988, 1989, the legislature at that time established a long-term paying of trying to pay off this billions of dollars worth of debt. We have been saddled with that. Each legislature has been. So This is a strong move in paying off a portion of debt, $2 billion, and at the same time freeing up our local systems to be able, although Chairman Bacala has reminded us that there will be a few that will not fall in the category. And we had a few. I hate to go into exacts, but we've been given some numbers. East Carroll, Grant, Richland, St. Landry, Tensas, I think Jefferson Short as well. And as Chairman Bacala mentioned, the note was very broad. It started, I think, at about $70,000 and moved its way to about $6 million. But in going through this multiple times, Chairman, what did you say? You think the number is going to fall in somewhere about 400,000, probably?
I think it'd be under 200,000. I'll give you a few examples. Franklin Parish, they have 224 employees. They can only afford to give a $1,955 pay raise under the scenario that we're using. So I mean, that gives you an example. You need an extra $45 a year for 224 employees. Concordia Parish, it looks like best case scenario falls about 51,000 short. They're able to give a $1,795 raise to their 251 employees, so they only need $205 per teacher per year. So when you look at it, it's primarily the smaller school systems, and most of them are relatively close. You mentioned Jefferson Parish. Since you did, let me see if I can find Jefferson on the list.
I think Jefferson's around 235. I think that's.
Actually, under the scenario that I have, they're fine.
They gave us another spreadsheet that they broke down members that. This has gone through numbers crunching. I know it's not numbers that you have, but we tried to look at every parish or every system of where they were. And yes, we just recognize there are a few that are not made whole. And the amendments have been placed on the bill, Chairman, to make certain that we're moving the money in the correct way. Is that correct again?
Yes, and we had amendments all along the way. So the first amendment was in committee that made sure that we make up for those schools, as we mentioned, the Concordias, we make up for that through UAL. And the second amendment was for the school systems that are receiving more money than is necessary to give the raises, we make sure it goes back to very specific purposes, either in classroom education or security enhancement. So basically, if you have excess, it doesn't go to football fields and basketball courts.
Yeah, that was always a concern, that we would narrow that down, that it would be used for, as best we could with the locals, with base education services. And so it has been worked on. I know we have some questions.
Well, let me add one more point. By providing for this pay raise and making it permanent through this mechanism, it kind of relieves us of that burden. For the last couple of years, we've been putting about $200 million per year into stipends, so we'll not have to do that. This replaces that stipend and puts us, gets us $200 million closer to a balanced budget without, reduces the fiscal cliff that we're facing.
Yeah. All right, good. We'll have some more questions. And Senator Mizell for a question.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Rep. Bacala. I know this is something we really needed to do. I've just got a couple of things. You just used the term, we're making sure that the money's going, and this. How are we making sure?
It's in the statutory in the language of the bill. If you look, it was an amendment by Representative Mellerin.
Okay, that's the last.
And it's page 2, and it's line 10 through 18. So it basically says any amount of savings shall be used for, and we specify that anything that's above the necessary amount for the raises.
No, I get that. So you're saying that it has to be that way, but what is the follow-through? What is the reporting mechanism? Or how are you going to know that they've actually done this way?
We haven't taken that into account at all.
Okay.
So that might be something that we want to talk about, if they have to do a reporting, how much they saved and how much they.
Right.
But no, I haven't put any of those checks and balances in the bill. So right now it's trust.
I would really like that because, we had ARPA money that was very creatively used in some parts of my district. And I think I think the heartburn is that we know what the intent is, and we know, but I would really love to get, even if it's just for the short term, okay, this is in place, this is operating, and we can have
I'll
some
have to trust you guys on the Senate to
Yeah.
fix that, add that component
What
to
do
it.
you
I'm-
mean? You always trust us in the Senate.
I always do,
Yeah, that's right.
So Senator Mizell, I'll be handling that, and I'll be glad to work with you before we get to that point. I think that's pretty much a strong resolve, so, but if you're willing, we can do it on the fly today, but I'd rather.
No, that's fine.
I'd rather
That's
do it
fine.
on the
I
floor,
just
if
wanted-
that's all right.
I'd feel good if it's
Okay,
all
good.
right with the rep.
No objection.
Thank you,
How's
thank
that?
you. And I don't have that list of parishes. If I ask you my parishes, can you just tell me if they're either on there or not?
They're
Oh,
on, they're on.
There's a lot of
There are?
there's a lot of variables, so I have different lists that may, and again, it's kind of outside the teacher's retirement system, that they hire more teachers, they increase, if you raise pay, then you have greater savings and therefore greater ability.
Right, right,
Anyway,
right.
if you give me a parish name, I'll look at, I'll tell you.
Washington.
Washington Parish.
Washington Parish, let's see. Let me look at this one. Well, I'm missing a page on this one. Let me go back.
We can do it later. I don't want to tie you up.
I don't
know.
mind. If you'll, I dumped some of my stuff this morning. Well, let me see if I can look at the other.
Have it, Rick?
Hand him this one. There it is, right there. I got it marked for him. Mr. Chairman, I have.
Okay,
I
I'll
have
let
the
you
spreadsheet marked
handle
for
it.
you. There it is.
It looks like Washington's able to give $1,950 pay raises, so they need to make up a little
Those
bit. But
50.
that's under one scenario. You might have a different scenario. But point is, they're going to be close, and I know your committee knows more about MFP than I do, since I don't serve on
So
education.
is Bogalusa, it's a separate school district. Is it listed separately on there? City of Bogalusa?
Chairman, you might have
I
one.
just gave you my spreadsheet.
I don't see it.
Okay,
Right
okay.
off the bat.
And-
I'm looking at the parishes, but I don't see Bogaloo's.
Okay, because that's a separate school district, and then
I think
Tangipahoa and St. Somebody just needs to give me a copy of that.
Yeah, and look, I think that, in full disclosure, I think one place that everybody, I think, is taken care of or will be taken care of. You have 69 charter schools that do not participate in teachers' retirement system at all.
Right.
I mean, they never paid it, so
Yeah.
there is no savings.
Yeah,
And that's far outside the scope of this bill. This bill says, with your savings, what are you going to do with it? So that's, just to make sure that you know that that's not something that's ignored, it's just not relevant to the bill.
Right, yeah, and that's the case, and the one charter school I have in my district is one of those 69, so, thank you, and we'll talk later, but appreciate it,
Glad to.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Miguez for a question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Representative Baclaw, thank you for bringing the bill before the committee today. So just want to go through and just clarify a few facts. So the bill, this piece of legislation ensures that the previous snippet that was given to teachers of $2,000 and support workers of $1,000 can be turned into a permanent pay raise in a different fashion by, instead of just giving the money into the MFP formula, the legislature would use its funds to pay down teacher retirement debt, in turn receive savings, which your piece of legislation would require those local school districts to use that savings to give the teachers that pay raise that we all believe they deserve. Is that a good description of your bill?
Exactly correct.
Give me some background. How'd you come up with the idea of this bill, and what's...
Well, this was part of the governor's package bills, and it's directly tied to HB 7. I mean, the whole idea
Yeah,
of
but
this.
didn't it come up previous to that?
Well, I'm getting to that. I think the concept has been used in the past. You and I were very strongly behind using some surplus funds in prior years. So the best we could do, I think, before, we wanted to spend $1 billion. You and I did. It didn't work out that way. We ended up using $325 million to pay down some of the Louisiana's state employees' retirement, and that 325 ended up saving us $82.6 million a year. So it's kind of like a 25% return on that investment perpetually. So the concept is not new, but the concept's a little different here in that you're requiring savings. We're not paying it we don't pay it directly as like state employees, but you're requiring those who are saving the money to invest the money since it's state dollars.
It's the same basic concept with a number of the members of this committee when we previously served in the House.
Yes.
And it's just been refined. At the time, it ran into a roadblock into the Senate, but you've reworked the bill, refined it, and it looks like it has a brighter day ahead.
Yes, I think the whole concept does, yes. And
So the teachers that are covered, public school teachers and support workers, correct? Mm-hmm. You mentioned the special schools as well?
the special schools are covered if any school that participates in teachers' retirement system. So the school, a lot of the special schools we're talking about, I have some of them here, are covered. Louisiana School for Math Science, New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, Thrive Academy. Everybody who participates, who has their employees participate, is covered.
My next question is charter schools. Are they included in the bill?
Only those
teachers?
no. There are a few charters. I think probably 10% of the charter schools or 15% of the charter schools participate in teachers' retirement system. So if you don't participate, there's no savings. So I think there may be 69 charter schools who do not participate in teachers' retirement system. Therefore, there is no savings to be realized. I guess the other side of that coin is they've realized the savings all along by not being a teacher's retirement system. They've never had that debt obligation or that financial obligation from the beginning. So we're almost kind of catching up public schools with those charters who do not participate.
Let's go back to the public school teachers. So every local public school system is different. Not so much an issue in my area, but I noticed in some of the more rural, impoverished areas across this state, there's been some concern about the savings not being enough to actually cover. This scenario where you gave to Senator Mizell is very close. Let's say the savings is $19.50,
Right.
and we're requiring a $2,000 pay increase.
Correct.
And some of the other areas across the state, that could be a more disparity, maybe $800 or more. Can you explain to me the mechanism and
I think
how
we
that
ever get at that point. I think about the biggest is maybe probably less than 500 would be the worst case scenario.
How do you explain the mechanism, how you cover that disparity? Because your bill would require them to give a $2,000 pay raise as well. Would those local school districts have to cover it out of their own funds, or is it
No,
covered through some legislation?
That's where the bill specifies that we want that to be covered by an adjustment in the UAL formula to provide more money to those schools who fall a little bit short.
Okay, so that's covered in the bill. That won't come out of local funding. What about higher education? It's my understanding that in some of the higher education part of these retirement systems as well, would they see some savings?
Mm-hmm. I think, yes, to the tune of about $75 million, they will see savings. We appropriate that money, okay?
Yes.
Not through a formula, not through anything else, so we can take that into account. I think in the process of looking at HB1 or the appropriations bill, if we do nothing, there's $75 million to the better because we've relieved them of debt or whatever. So
Because I don't think
that's something we need to contemplate.
Part of this process for the public back home, we're not advocating to give college professors an increase. We're just looking at public school teachers and support workers. But when you do this, because higher education is part of the retirement system, and we're going to be paying down their debt as well, the representative has testified that we'll see a $75 million savings. So it'll be incumbent upon us to figure out how to prioritize those dollars, because I know higher education is always screaming for more money, and this would be an opportunity to get them some savings there.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, well, I appreciate your testimony. I appreciate all the hard work, because we know that teachers and support workers together, which makes a school system work, and you can't do one without the other. And I appreciate your work trying to make sure that we get them to a position where they can see a permanent increase on their pay.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much.
All right, we do have a couple of cards. One green card, Pete Martinez with Louisiana Charter Schools in Actions in Favor does not wish to speak. Lance Maxwell on behalf of Governor Landry is present but not wishing to speak. And then Larry Carter is here with a white card. Louisiana Federation of Teachers is present and would like to speak. Mr. Carter, if you'd come to the table, introduce yourself for the record. We welcome you to Senate Education Committee this morning, as always. Welcome back, Mr. Carter. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. I certainly want to thank you for this opportunity to speak before you. I am president of the Louisiana Federation of Teachers and School Employees. I would like to begin by thanking Governor Landry, Representative Bacala, and Senator Edmonds. We found that HB does two essential things. HB 5 recognizes that our certified and non-certified educators deserve to have the legislature make good on its promise to make what was supposed to be a one-time stipend a permanent part of their salary in the 2024 regular session. HB 5 also takes steps to make the defined benefit, one of the best teacher recruitment and retention tools we have, stronger by paying off part of the UAL before the 29 payout. However, we do have some concerns that we have brought to the governor's office and are working with them to resolve. LFT's cautious approach stems from recent experiences. After witnessing the problematic implementation of Act 311 this year, the disregard for the planning time law, and other instances of legislative intent being ignored, we continue to rely on we cannot just rely on good intention alone when it comes to educators' paychecks. Representative Bacala and Senator Edmonds' strong advocacy and commitment to preventing pay cuts and the governor's office willingness to work with LFT are encouraging. Again, LFT supports the bill in spirit, and we look forward to working with Governor Landry and the legislators to resolve this and other concerns and honor the promise made to Louisiana educators. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. We appreciate your presence, and we appreciate our teacher base in Louisiana. We love them and appreciate what they do for our children.
Thank you so much.
All right, the board is clear. Chairman Bacala, if you come back to the desk, and let me say a word before Chairman Bacala closes. And I didn't get to have any closure on the House side because I had to end up in a meeting on our side of the Senate. Several of us have you've mentioned, Senator Miguez, we're highly in favor of reducing debt. We feel like that whether it's in our private lives or our corporate lives or in our government lives, debt is one of those factors that we just can't find many good things to say about it. Our legislature has been strapped, as well as the governor's office, for decades of trying to pay off an enormous amount of debt. And a couple of years ago, we took an opportunity to pay off, and I think we were successful in paying about $700 million worth of variety of debt. It was still not enough. If there's any good, and there are multiple factors in this tax package that we like, we certainly enjoy the opportunity to double our deductions for seniors, and we love the opportunity for personal income tax to go down. All of those are great benefits in the tax plan that we're working on to try to conclude. And we do thank Governor Landry for leading us, and for President Henry, and for Speaker DeVilliers. But I don't know that we recognize today of the enormous factor of removing $2 billion worth of debt. I think the factor is somewhere around $1.5 billion worth of interest savings alone. So this is a major part of this tax package. So does it reward our teachers? And I think there's unfortunately been a lot of confusion over when we offer stipends and other things. This will make a permanent pay raise for our teachers so that we can say to our Louisiana teachers all over all of our districts that we love you and appreciate you, but we're not just patting you on the back. We are permanently bringing you a teacher pay raise of $2,000, and for all of our other employees, that $1,000 benefit. This bill has all of these factors. I think it's one of the best bills that's in the package. I appreciate the work of Chairman Bacala and others, and I'm just glad to just be a part of something that I think has long-term legacy effect for the state of Louisiana. And with that, Chairman Bacala.
For me. Thank you for your support.
That was my part that I wanted to say in the House. And before we do that, I think I have one other thing, and I'm sorry I've got to interrupt, but I did forget. Senator Mizell has a personal privilege that I'm going to recognize. I'm sorry.
And I appreciate what you were saying, so I don't want to take that moment away. But before we leave, I just wanted to recognize I've got some folks from back home. Kim Wagner is the parish councilwoman from Washington Parish. Caroline Terrio is Senator Kennedy's district person presence. And we've got Susie Bourne, who is the LA for Representative Weibel. So you can tell them you met his LA.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, Chairman. I don't use my notes too often, but I have a good staff keeps me in line. Chairman Bacalao to close.
You did.
All right. What's the pleasure of the committee? Senator Muguez, without hesitation, moves favorable. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, HB 5 will be reported favorable. Thank you, Chairman Bacalao. Thank
Thank
you
you.
all for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, member.
Senator
HB 5, Bacala, Senator Edmonds is going to come to the table on that bill. I need to read those in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, HB 5 is an opportunity to make permanent the teacher pay raise of $2,000 as we have done as a stipend. It also takes $1,000 into account for other employees of what we have included as a stipend. In order for that to be accomplished, the balance of funds in the Education Quality Trust Fund, which is about 1.4, Education Excellence Fund, which is 471, and Louisiana Quality Support. It totals $1,919,000, so we just basically said about $2 billion. That $2 billion will be used to pay debt towards the teacher's retirement fund, which then allows the locals to save about $270 million a year or so. So that allows them then to take up the teacher pay raise, make it permanent. We have amended the bill to make certain that they can only use the money in those directions of personnel and a couple of other items. So I think everything's been taken care of. It's been vetted by House Education, House Appropriations, come to Senate Education, and today, because it does have a note, this is the clarity of the note. And there's one other issue that we fixed, or at least we think we got it in the right section, is that there are a few rural parishes that may not have, maybe they're $50 or $100. I think Representative Bacalao thought that the maximum that is seen was about $250 short per employee in a parish. That will be handed in adjustable MFP, anywhere from a couple of $100,000 to maybe $400,000 is what we heard in education this week. So that's the bill. That's the reason we're here today, is just to make certain we've covered the note, and that's the explanation of the note.
Okay, thank you. We got a couple of questions. Senator Boudreaux.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I just a couple of clarifications, and let me up front say, of course, I support everything that we can do for our teachers and more. But the amount that you just alluded to, that we would have to help with those locals, what is that actual amount?
So
we're
they're
talking about?
Yeah, they took originally they took a note that said it could be as low as $70,000, but it
Okay.
could be as high as 6.5 million. I think is one of the ones that it was a very broad note because of the
I would say so.
yeah, very broad.
70 to
So
6.5?
yeah, so that we did another sheet. I think I have it in here, and basically each parish taking a look. I don't remember which one, Senator, was the worst, but it was nowhere near those kinds of amounts. I may have left it at the table there, Mr. Chairman. That has I have a breakdown sheet that I can show you of what every parish, many parishes have no loss at all. There were some parishes, for example, let me just give you some examples of that. East Carroll was going to lose $6,521. Grant could not afford by $41,000. Richland was 11. Tensas was 17. So they went and looked at each one of those, and it's coming to the amount of somewhere of around about 250,000. Could be, I think maybe even, it might be as high as 400. We would take a look at the MFP. We'd probably make the adjustment in there. We don't see a major issue with that. It's been looked at pretty good.
Yeah, with that number, that brings a lot of comfort
Yeah.
that it's not something, first of all, for the teachers, the number could never be high enough. So that's fine. The second part, I want to be clear, and I know here in finance we're talking about the dollars, but I do think it is important that we take a minute and explain once again, what are we doing with this? And where I'm going is that we have, for the last 2 years, provided our teachers and the support staff with a stipend, which is not part of the MFP. It doesn't go through the formula, it doesn't count towards retirement. What we're saying in this bill and where we're moving forward with our teachers is that we're gonna take that $2,000 stipend and we're gonna make it permanent.
The
Now,
locals would make it permanent. Yes,
We're
sir.
gonna pay down the UAL, and in return, the locals will go ahead and make that adjustment. I need you to walk us through so people can get a clear understanding that we doing this one time. I've had calls and I have people who think, and if I'm wrong, correct me, that we're gonna do this every year, a $2,000 stipend as part of this bill. That it becomes permanent this one time, but that's the end of the road.
That's correct. That is correct.
That is the end of the road as to what we're allocating, what we're putting into statute moving forward. And there is nothing else connected to this train other than this allocation that we have used as a stipend for the last 2 years. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And let me go both sides of the coin on that. So we've inherited billions of dollars worth of debt since the late 1980s, when it was ramped forward, say 1988, 89, of the retirement systems in general all having strong difficulties. So we've been paying on that for every year, all decades, legislators way before us. So what this would do is this would take $2 billion worth of funding cash, and it would pay towards the retirement system, which would eliminate $2 billion worth of debt. In doing that, this one-time move, if we do this, it's all tied together, then that would save each system a certain percentage of their MFP funding, which then they could use those dollars they're paying towards that note every year and use that towards the teacher's pay raise. There's enough money in there, except for, as we mentioned, a few parishes that we're going to have to go back and backfill some of that. But the broad sense of the brush is that majority of our systems are able to then take the $2,000, give it a permanent teacher pay raise one time, and one time for the other employees of $1,000. Going forward, they would have to decide then, out of their monies, to give an additional raise if necessary, or
When you say they, we're talking about the locals.
the locals,
The locals.
if they had funding, or nothing prohibits us from adding to in the MFP, or we could do stipends in the future, as we have done. Nothing ties any dollars except what is mentioned in this particular move, this instrument. And so it also, though, let me say, so we have an understanding, this also saves, I think, $1.5 billion of interest that will be paid going forward on the teacher's retirement. So there is still possibilities of other funds that are paid off. So I think it's good on the debt side. I think it's good on the budgeting side for us. And I think it's good for the teachers as well, which is number one priority, is to make certain they're permanently taken care of and this stipend is over. Again, if we choose to do another one, that has nothing to do with this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Senator Boudreaux. Senator Magid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Chairman of Education. I appreciate all the conversation that we had yesterday, and I don't want to go through all that again. But I want to touch on a part of it, which we can continue from Representative Bacala, was the $75 million in savings that we'll see in higher education.
Higher ed, yes, sir.
So I know a lot of the focus is on what's it going to do to our local school systems, but higher education is part of the teacher retirement system.
It is, because they paid into the teacher's retirement system, so it would free anyone that was involved in the teacher's retirement system would see the benefit.
Yes, so then we have a fiscal note on that around $75 million. And yesterday I was trying to find out exactly what we would do with that money, and we talked about general appropriations. But it's important to talk about the interaction between HB 5 and HB 7, which is the constitutional amendment that has of Article 7, correct?
Correct.
So it's important for the public to know that this is just the instrument of which to deliver a pay increase by paying down debt, but it won't become a reality unless the constitutional amendment passes at the ballot.
That's correct. The people will speak on this matter.
That's right. And when we do the constitutional amendment, we'll be eliminating a number of funds, which some of those dollars will be used to pay down debt, which will see savings, which will be used to give teacher pay raises, correct?
Correct.
And then some of those funds currently are being used by the Board of Regents and some other private schools to fund some yearly activity annually that they have going on, right?
That is correct.
And I guess the idea is we're going to take the 75 million of savings from higher education, and we're going to backfill all those annual expenses.
So I would assume that as we do on all appropriation matters, that we will hear from them and we'll begin to deal with that.
But that would make the
those
most
dollars.
sense.
That does make the most sense, and I think that's what we will, we'll do.
There are a lot of stuff going on in this package, but the one bright spot is that we have an opportunity to give a pay raise to teachers of $2,000 and support workers of $1,000, showing a full appreciation across the board that the entire system is needed in order to educate our children. Like Senator Boudreaux mentioned earlier, it's been in a one-time form that we've been basically renewing each year and fighting to try to find the funds, but this would basically cement that going forward.
I think on both sides of the coin, there's two extreme positives about this bill. A is our teachers, which all of us support. I don't think I've ever been in a room in any committee in my almost 10 years now, we're starting year 10, that we're all in favor of the teachers. And the stipends were the only way we could get it done, we got it done. But this, as you word, cements. This is a permanent fixture for this particular action of 2,000 and 1,000. But I think the other side of that, Senator, is that debt is a horrific item for families or for our businesses or for our governments or for our systems. So the removal of $2 billion worth of debt, and I knew you and I have seen that in our side on the House. We were adamant about paying off debt. It's just an anchor, and I hate it in my own life. I have to live with some of it, but I think both of these things are extremely positive, and that's the way I see it.
And as you know, this session, we're talking about a lot of different revenue measures, right? We're talking about personal income tax, corporate income tax, and a number of other things, right?
Yes.
And the one bright part is we always talk about putting our teachers first. Regardless of if any of those revenue measures pass or not, we can rest assured that if the constitutional amendment passes and HB 5 passes, that we'll have the one-time money to pay down debt to pay our teachers regardless of what happens with the rest of this package, correct?
Correct. This instrument will go into effect with that vote.
And that's sending a strong message to the public that we're putting our teachers
I
first.
certainly hope so, and I hope to my own teachers that are not only in my district, but I have friends and people that I've been involved with across the state of Louisiana that are outstanding educators, that we want to do this and more. And I hope that they feel that we're doing that today.
And to Senator Boudreaux's point, he talked about the future. Well, we can't predict what the future is going to be. But if we're able to get to a spot where we have additional money in the future, then we can have those conversations. But we want to make sure that the promise that we made in the past, that we can live by them going forward. And I appreciate your work on this. I appreciate Representative Bacala and all the members over the last year who fought to work this structure into the process.
Thank you, Senator. You're right, and Senator Boudreaux's right. We look at SREB averages across our region of the country, which is reasonable to look at what other states do. We're still not there yet. This will help us move in that direction, but this is only a beginning. Hopefully we'll continue to find other dollars that we can free up, and we can continue to support our educators.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, the board's clear. I'll offer a motion to move favorable on House Bill number 5 on teacher salary. Seeing no opposition, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members.